Hey guys, in this video we're going to be previewing the next 12 race takedown trial due to come to global, which is the Dullahan trial. It came after Stroper and JP about a month later, so it's about a month away. We're going to go ahead and get an example preview clear in so you can be prepared when it does come. So this is an Undead fight. It's only vulnerable to fire and lightning. You have to use one of those two elements. It has lower defense than spirit, so physical damage is preferred. It does a lot of stuff. I'll be explaining it during the fight, but undead, fire or lightning damage, preferably physical. So the missions are 10 turns or less, 5 units or less, and no deaths. So we're going to be taking Neovision's Kain as our DPS for this fight. He came out around the same time as the trial. He's probably going to be out within a month on global. So he's probably going to be available at the time this trial does come out. So this is the party we're going to use. The boss does a preemptive holy nuke. You can either gear your party for immunity, or you can use a preemptive cover tank. We're going to use General Celeste as our preemptive cover tank to deal with it. So let's go ahead and get in here, and I'll explain the fight as we go, and I'll show the gear and all at the end of the video. So the boss does have 0 passives whatsoever. Keep that in mind. So the better breaker, the better. We're going to be using Dullahan, though, with his 88% breaks, which is not the highest, but it is a viable option. So here's the ambush, AoE holy damage. We decided to cover it with General Celeste. Now, the boss does have various turns that are quite dangerous, that uses multiple physical damage, accuracy, all that kind of stuff, stop, healing, etc. So in order to line up some safe burst turns, we're going to basically just pass turn 1. We're just going to guard all these guys, and General Celeste is going to cover, provoke, and Nethicite. The reason for Nethicite is some of the magic can be stopped, and that includes things that do imperils and all. It's not required, but it is helpful. Okay, so there is some, turn 1's really safe. Turn 2 is going to be a single AoE physical attack. Also, I should mention the boss counters with physical damage as well. So we're going to use Dullahan to absorb those first few counters. We're just going to hit the boss a few times with Dullahan to absorb the counters because he is evading. We're going to use General Celeste to Mirage with 1,000 Needles, which is again going to help us survive the physical because Celeste, Secura, and Dullahan are evading. Our DPS units are not evading. So we need to keep them nice and safe. But turn 2 is only a single AoE physical. Now we're going to use Secura to imbue Thunder. We're going to imperil the boss to Thunder with Burst. And we're going to protect Ga. Now Kain is going to cool down Magnus and Chain. Cooldown, Magnus, and Chain. Keep in mind when you use Kain, you want to always use his cooldown before the Magnus, because it's a 10-turn cooldown, and the Magnus refreshes it to usable right away. His chaining is obviously not his real damage. There's the counters. Here comes some physical damage, some AoE magic, and then an AoE physical. There's the AoE physical. We miraged it with 1,000 Needles. Other turns are multiple AoE physicals, but we're going to be in the air for those turns, so we're not really worried about it. Alright, so Secura is just going to refresh, imbue, burst, and protect Ga. And we're going to go ahead and jump our Dragoons now. Now, Kain is unfortunately a slow jumper. His jump takes multiple turns to land, so he's going to be in the air for a while, but that's not super bad. Okay, so this turn is going to be a few magical imperils. You could gear for it, you could just eat it, not a big deal, but we're going to use General Celeste to Sealing Blade, and we're going to use Dullahan to Nethicite, just to stop the imperils. That's an optional thing. The boss does very low magical damage anyway, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and Nethicite that holy attack, because it does include a 300% holy imperil, so it's easier to just not have to deal with it. Okay, so turn 4, our guys are still in the air. We're going to use Dullahan to use his special gauntlet for an 88% break. We're going to use Secura on Lakshmi for stop immunity, because that's going to be coming in a few turns. We don't need it yet, but it'll be there for later. And then General Celeste can just go ahead and refresh, cover, provoke, and again, more Nethicites. Yeah, the next stop is going to be on turn 6. So the stop immunity will still be there. So here's again physical damage. As you see, a lot of physical damage is where the whole party is evading, and this is why I wanted to keep the Dragoons in the air during these turns to keep them nice and safe. You could use multi-mirage as well, which is another option, but I figured I'd do it this way. So now it's time to land the Dragoons. So we're going to use Dullahan to support chain with Secura. Now these are using a chaining frame granted from an item. I'm currently using Lyd and Jake's STMR. It grants chaining frames. If you don't have that, you can use things like throwing coins, or you can use things like black magic, etc. But we're going to go ahead and chain with this, and we're going to drop our Dragoons and cap. So let's go ahead and chain this up. Wait for the chain to build, and go ahead and cap our Dragoons. So there we go, decent damage. Now we are using an 88% break. If we were using a 90% break, also if my Kain was like EX3, we probably could have ended the fight on turn 5 or even turn 4 if we had gone quicker and had a victory right here. You know, my team is not really built for a super OTK, which is fine. Turn 5 is a relatively safe turn. It's a single AoE physical, so we're going to use just, again, Mirage to deal with it. Now, keep in mind, now that the boss is below 80%, we've pushed him into phase 2. Not this turn, it's turns on the turn after this turn. So there's the little red flash you saw on the boss. That means phase 2 is now active for the remainder of the fight. This is where it gets significantly more dangerous. He starts doing stop, he starts healing himself, he starts doing accuracy physical damage. A lot of dangerous stuff starts happening this turn. Also more AoE physicals. So we're going to use Secura to shift here. We're going to go ahead and use her shifted LB for big stat buff, big thunder amplify, etc. We're going to just go ahead and jump Kains immediately. Now, we could use their cooldown to power up their jump for a big damage boost, but that would leave them on the ground, which leaves them vulnerable. And because this turn is going to be a stop, and if you remember when we did stop resist, they were currently in the air. There's going to be some AoE physicals. A lot of bad stuff is happening this turn. So we're just going to jump immediately. Because the boss is almost dead, it's going to be fine. He's going to die for the next jump, so it's not really a big deal. Like I mentioned, the boss is going to start using things like accuracy, and it's pretty painful. You could use accuracy down. You could use multi-mirage to deal with it. We're just going to guard our General Celeste, and she can take it with her 75% MIT, which is currently still active. And now as far as healing goes, every third turn below 80%, he heals himself. That, like Demon Chimera, you can either do things like Bounce Reflect onto the boss or Nethicite it. We're gonna, as you can imagine, Nethicite it. So that's gonna stop the healing. There's the physical damage. Wasn't super bad, and it's only 50% accuracy, so it was less than it seemed, but it was still, it could have been painful if we weren't guarding and all that. Also, that heal at the end was Nethicited, as you saw it right there. Now, the heal is only every third turn, so that's, you know, not too big a deal. Now, we're going to use Dullahan on this turn to use his SLB for some decent breaks. We're going to use General Celeste to use her LB for 80% mitigation. Again, this is mostly just for the damage mitigation. And we're going to go ahead and summon Lakshmi just to top off the tank. She only got hit a little bit last turn, but if your tank isn't as strong, you know, it can potentially hurt. There's some counters where the counters don't have accuracy. Alright, there we go. So that's with 80% mitigation. We took one of the accuracy attacks did miss. It's only 50% accuracy, and 2 of them hit. You know, if we didn't have 80% mitigation plus one of them missing, it could have been potentially really, really painful. Anyway, now it's turn 8. We're going to, again, support chain with our support units, and we're going to drop our Dragoons. So let's go ahead and do this. Wait for the chain to build nicely. And drop the Dragoons, and there it is. We did all missions, 10 turns or less, 5 units or less, and no deaths. With Kain, overall, Kain is a decent Dragoon. So I'm going to show the gear and the party. So in the base form, it's the only form we actually used. Celeste has 100 or better light resist. That's for the for the ambush, because we didn't break the boss yet. You don't want to have your tank taking a fully powered up unresisted light attack. So light immunity, some decent ice resist. The boss uses 100% ice and perils, so we're almost immune, not quite, but we actually Nethicited almost all the imperils anyway. You want to gear her for as much physical bulk as you can and full evasion. So we are full evasion. We used active provoke, so we don't need passive provoke. So full evasion, active provoke. We gave her 1,000 needles to help with Mirage on the party. That's for the turns that our Dragoons were on the ground, not safe. And then some resistances. So, you know, overall, Celeste is a decent tank for this. She can also do Nethicite as well. Kain, in the base form, is using... This is my Kain. He's only EX1, so he's not nearly as good as he could be. 5,700 attack power. We do have 300% Undead Killer, maxed out jump damage, maxed out attack power. He is using the Chronicle FF4 double hand spear. Here's his build. Chain cap up. If I had his STMR, it'd be way better. We're using Sephiroth's card because it gives really high Undead Killer. So there we go. Shift form. I was built for light immunity for the ambush because I wasn't going to use Celeste originally. And then I gave him auto buffing and all that. Turns out I changed my strategy, you know, before I did the fight. So the shift form wasn't really relevant. And thank you to the friends that built it for me, even though I didn't really use the shift form. But that was built in case you weren't using Celeste. Sage of Thunder Sakura was, again, full evasion because they stayed on the ground most turns. So full evasion, dual wielding a fire weapon, and we're using, this is where we're getting the chain frames from. And again, if you don't have this, or if you want to use something else, you can get chain frames from any source you want. This is Graviton Cannon chain frames. We dual wielded it. So it's, you know, pretty good for chaining. You can use throwing coins, you can use black magic, whatever you want to chain as long as you're using fire or thunder. Not much else to say about her. Full evasion, a little bit of Esper fill, shift form, geared identical, and there we go. Dullahan in the base form is same thing, or the only form actually. Dual wielding with a chain giving item. We're using his special gauntlet so we can get his 88% break, which is very helpful. Full evasion, and that's basically it. Oh, and Nethicite as well. And then the friend Star King built me a really nice Kain. Let's go ahead and show right here. Oh, come on, show right here. This Kain is 300% Undead Killer, 800% jump damage, 7,000 attack power, and chain cap up. So yeah, this one is EX3 with his own STMR. It obviously powers up Kain dramatically. I don't have that yet. I'll get it someday. But there we go. And shift form, like I mentioned, was built the way I requested it, but I ended up not using the shift form. So that was the clear. We'll go ahead and show the damage breakdown. I already can tell you the friend is going to do way more than I did. But yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nice. 8 turns. Yeah, I think with the 90% break and an undead buffer, you could have actually done like a 4-turn clear and OTK'd it with the first jump. So, not that big of a swing, but obviously the friend, you know, EX3 did a lot better than my guy. So there it is. There is an all-mission clear with Kain on the Dullahan trial, and, you know, hopefully I've explained most of it, and look forward to it coming to Global soon, within 2 or 3 weeks, or a month. We'll see. See you then.